Welcome to the latest edition of the LFC Delaware podcast. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Cathy Long, whose LinkedIn profile describes her as social entrepreneur, football industry expert, speaker, and writer. We know she's also appeared multiple times on the Anfield Wrap. She also was on an NBC show Roger Bennett hosted earlier this year, talking about Liverpool and the place of the team in the city and what it meant to the people of the city. So hopefully we're going to be touching on some very interesting topics here. Cathy, really great to have you.
Hi, good to be here.
Joined, of course, by Charlie, Tim, and Sean, and we're going to dive straight in. So, Cathy, tell us your Liverpool story. What's your earliest memories of the Reds?
My earliest memories are good ones, although not directly of being at the match. My childhood seemed to consist, in my memory, it consists basically of a bus going past, down the end of our street with trophies on it, and the team all celebrating. And it seemed to happen every year. And of course, it almost did happen every year, It felt like this annual occurrence. And I grew up with someone who I think just never thought I'd actually go to a match, because that just seemed like people who'd been going to football for years and had these magical things called season tickets did that. And I probably thought you had to have been like laying bricks for about 20 years to sort of qualify for one, So I didn't even think I'd ever get to a match. But, when the team would win trophies and would celebrate and do a bus tour, they came down the road from us. And it was the most exciting thing ever. It was just extraordinary, just everybody out on the streets and everybody celebrating. And it seemed like it was just the biggest thing that could ever happen, And actually, even now, if we win a trophy, when we win trophies, of course, my main thought is like, will I be back in time to watch the bus parade? I was in Istanbul and desperately going, we've got to get home for the bus parade,
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've heard that being a thing.
Going, what are you complaining about? You were in Istanbul. And I was like, yeah, but I missed the bus.
That's great. Actually, I need to check with you which road the bus went past, because I also lived on a road that the bus went past.
I actually moved to Queen's Drive, when I was getting my own flat, sort of early 20s, onto the Allison Road Maze corner, because it always went past there, and that was just about coincided with when we stopped winning trophies. But I was brought up in Hunts Cross, and so it came, if it came from the airport, it came, sort of quite near us on Menlove Avenue, or it would be near our school, which was in South Liverpool as well. So anywhere around Allerton was sort of great,
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So when did you get to start going to games? Because clearly, if you were in Istanbul, you may have seen one or two before that.
Yeah, not till my sort of late teens, actually. It seems weird, but it's only up the road. But growing up in the south of the city, you never went to the north of the city somehow. You said I never went past the city centre. It felt like there was no reason to. And it was only when I had friends who lived not too far from Anfield, like in Tuebrook, that I realised that the Anfield was only down the road, and you could just go down there when the match was on. And then we realised not only could you just go down there, but actually, they opened the gates on 3/4 time to let people out, and you could just walk in, and you could just walk in and up these incredible steps and then find yourself on the Kop. I mean, it was the most extraordinary, exciting, sort of exhilarating event ever, really. And I think the first few games, I probably didn't even know what the score was when we got in, it was just about being on the Kop. It was just about being there.
That 3/4
I had to graduate sort of actually getting in from the start,
Right. Just a word on 3/4 time. I'm sure that's unfamiliar to most of the people who are going to be watching this.
Yeah. It was like the last 15 minutes or so, basically, they would open up the gates.
Yeah.
They would open the exit gates because people would start to leave. And, for safety reasons, obviously, at some point, you've got to just forget, I think they used to close the turnstiles. I don't know, actually. I don't know when they closed the turnstiles. Maybe at half time in those days. But anyway, then it was all be shut, and then they would open the exit gates. Some people would be coming out, but we would just go in. And apparently it was quite a common thing for some people to, start going that way, just sort of sneak in for the last, 15 minutes or whatever.
Yeah, definitely seen a few goals scored in the last 15 minutes that way.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, yeah.
True.
So that was my first taste of it, of just sort of walking in off the street into the Cop and thinking, wow, this is incredible. You know.
So when you started going regularly, who were the players that you were really drawn to?
Dalglish, I suppose, is the obvious one, isn't he? You know, I mean, I grew up being a big fan of Steve Highway when I was little, and the players that I guess had been my heroes then weren't really by the time that I was going. And it was at that time when we still had a good team. You know, we had John Aldridge around that time. Would he have been there that time? Not all my heroes, actually, when I think now of the players, like when I think of, like, you know, Steve Staunton and Ray Houghton and, you know, that sort of, but that was the team at the time. And it was when, you know, we still were winning things and we still thought we would continue winning things in the late 80s, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it would go on forever. I remember a conversation with a friend in which she said to me, like, what would it be like if Liverpool didn't win things? And I remember thinking, well, I've no idea, but, well, like, we're never going to have to think about that. I mean, the arrogance of it, you know, but
Yeah.
It was like, well, yeah, I can't, like, it was like, do you mean like never win things? What do you mean, like, just like come second and maybe not win the FA Cup final? And she was like, I don't know, just imagine if Liverpool didn't win things. Still couldn't get my head around it, you know. And actually, in fairness, we have, you know, whilst we think we've had barren years, it's we've always had a smattering of trophies, even in the barren years. So
Yeah,
we can't complain too much compared to a lot of fans, you know.
yeah.
I did listen. I'm sorry. I did listen to something this week. I know it was Neil Atkinson. He was talking about that very thing, like people going on and on and on about the 30-year drought.
Oh yeah,
And it's like
30 years of hurt. Like,
14 trophies in the 30 years, including 2 European Cups.
Yeah, exactly.
Most teams would be like the ultimate success for most teams.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So more recently, I know you don't live in Liverpool now. What's your game kind of watching approach? Do you go to a lot of games?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I did, you know, still got my season ticket. So yeah, I mean, I still get to all just about all the home games, and most of the away games. I live in London, so I manage to get to the London ones usually, and a fair number of the other away games. Yeah, I would have gone, I think, to Newcastle at the end of the season, and yeah, there were a few that I was obviously, you know, ready to go to towards the end of the season that I missed, but. Yeah, it's a bit of a journey, but it's always worth it. You know, it's.
So where is your season ticket in the ground?
In the Cup.
In the okay, nice.
Yeah. Block 208, the line between block 207 and 206, which we only realised recently, like the seat next to us is £1 more expensive.
Oh,
you know. We all sat in Steve's seat next to us and we were like, oh my God, this is an amazing view, because obviously for an extra £1 a game, it's completely different. We're now referred to as the people in the cheap seats. And I love it, because what I love is that, you know, we've all sat in their seats since 1994 when the Cop was seated. So we know each other pretty well, you know. Although I always say that, like, we really know the row in front, but not the row behind, because that would be weird. Don't ask me to explain it, but like, no. But we've all sort of, well, we've all been through a lot over the years together, I suppose. So yeah, we've got to know each other pretty well, and actually that's what I've missed, you know, towards the end of last season was just so strange. Like, we're in touch with people, but not in the same way. And actually, we're in touch with some people, but some of the guys in front of us, like, we know we don't have their phone numbers or whatever.
Yeah.
Not connected on Facebook. Like, I don't know Bob's surname. I just know that I hug Bob every time a goal is scored, and I really missed that.
Yeah.
I miss Bob, but, you know, sorry, Bob, don't know where you are. Actually, just hope everyone's still well. Like, we don't even know. I mean, it is strange, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's strange to think of what it's sort of going to be like seeing those people again. I think that would be emotional for me.
Yeah.
You know,
I had a ticket in the Kenny, what's now the Kenny Dalglish stand, and for some reason we got moved, and I could, so was kind of connected for years with these guys, and I don't know if the guy's name was Bob who sat next to me, but once I moved, I had no way of connecting with him because that was the only connection I had, being sat next to him for years watching Liverpool. It's funny, yeah. I kind of imagine that somehow you would be more connected. So you before we started recording, we talked about the fact you had done some work, or you were doing some work for Tottenham Hotspur, which brought up an interesting challenge on Champions League final day. You want to tell us a little bit about the work, and then we're interested to hear how you managed to, or what line you managed to follow during that game.
Yeah, well, I've never hid my support. I mean, I've worked in football a long time. I worked for the Premier League for 15 years. I've done bits of freelance work for Liverpool and for other clubs over the years. And I mean, you can't hide your support. You certainly can't if you're a season ticket holder. I mean, there aren't many people in my line of work. Actually, oddly, at the Premier League, there were only 2 of us who had season tickets, you know. But yeah, so I wear my heart on my sleeve. Everybody knows who I support. When I was first asked to help Tottenham out, I was just working for them on a freelance basis, and it was really around the new stadium and the transition of them moving into the stadium. And I sort of thought I would be the person like sort of carrying the baton over the finishing line, and everything would have been ready, and it wasn't quite like that. And then just as they actually move into the new stadium, of course, they then have Champions League quarterfinals in the stadium, semi-finals, and then they get to the final against Liverpool. And I'm going to be honest, and I'm sorry, Tottenham, if any of you are listening, but that night in Amsterdam, when you got through to the final, I was probably more devastated than any of the Ajax fans when that last minute goal went in, because we'd got through the night before, and I was just thinking this is going to be amazing, and I can just go to the final and I can enjoy myself. And then I knew when that happened that I was going to end up working, and just that my head would be wrecked by the experience of working for Tottenham and, you know, supporting Liverpool. And I had to do all the planning meetings, and then the planning meetings that you do with UEFA. You know, we had to fly straight to Madrid, and you do these meetings where you're there with the other team that you're playing, and they're used to that being quite a difficult session sometimes, I think. You know, and at least that people don't know each other. And of course, I knew all the Liverpool people; I'd known them for years. You know, so it made it very easy in terms of, you know, working with the opposite club, if you like. And that did make it enjoyable, but it was still strange. I had to wear a Tottenham t-shirt with a Liverpool with a plain jacket over it, stuffed in my bag, ready for when I could actually get into the game. You know, I remember in the morning we went into the stadium for the planning meeting, and they were like, "Oh, you should all have your photographs taken with the trophy," and everybody was trying to get me to touch the trophy, and I was like, "No." Like, I'm not going near the thing. So yeah, I had to avoid being near the trophy. I found the day really tough, actually. And I just think that stress of, you know, supporting the team, trying to do a really, really good professional job. And I pride myself on that. Whoever I'm working with in football, that I'm going to be ultimately professional. You know, I'm not going to let my support get in the way. If anything, I think I've overcompensated over the years. My fear was obviously that Liverpool would lose, that there might have been any problems between the fans, you know, that Liverpool fans would be blamed, and I would be in the position of working for Tottenham.
Yeah.
With all of that happening and probably defending their position. And I have to say, I think I just felt physically sick at the prospect. And I was very confident about the fans because I just, you know, I know our fans and I knew Tottenham fans, and I was confident it would be all right. But, you know, you always have that fear. Yeah. Particularly when you throw the police into the mix and, you know, all of the things that we know can go wrong when these matches are organised. And I've been at enough Champions League finals to not be confident in the organisation. Mm-hmm. And as it turned out, I was still helping Tottenham fans because I was basically heading up all of their supporter liaison. So basically I was still helping their fans get access to the stadium with, you know, ripped tickets and lost tickets and all of those things way into the first half. And then I eventually tried to get into the stadium. I had Tottenham accreditation and I still had a Liverpool ticket that I bought, because I did trust UEFA that having an accreditation for Tottenham would be enough to get me in. And even on the day of the game, I was thinking I should let one of my friends have this ticket. And then I just thought, I can't risk it. I don't think I'll get in, even with accreditation. And you know what, honestly, like half an hour into the game, and I've heard, of course, the goal go in early on. I wasn't quite sure what I'd heard because I had two shouts. And of course, one was the penalty being given and then was the penalty being scored. But it was difficult to compute, especially with it being so early on. And yeah, I got in and it was half an hour in, and I was trying to persuade them to get me in through the Tottenham end, and they wouldn't let me in even with my accreditation. And then I only just managed to get in with my Liverpool ticket because they were just closing everything up and just saying, no one gets in, you're late.
Wow.
And I've been here since 4:30. I'm not late.
Yeah.
Look, I'm working for you. Here's my accreditation around my neck. You know? So yeah, I was just relieved, to be honest. And when Origi scored, I think I just wanted to lie down. I was just glad it was all over. And then the day afterwards, we had a day left in Madrid, I think, and then we went to Alicante, and I just lay on a beach in Alicante like, oh, my work is done. It's fine.
That's great. Yeah.
The story. But you missed the parade.
Yeah. But I missed the parade, exactly. I was like, no, I won't the parade. Where's the open top bus? You know.
Can you talk a little bit about the work you did for the Premier League for the 15 years, Cathy?
So yeah, so I was brought in there. I mean, I'd freelanced a little bit for them before that, doing like focus groups, fan groups. Now I got into all of this really because of Hillsborough, you know, and campaigning after that for safety.
Mm-hmm.
But they basically said to me, like, come and do this from the inside, you know. So, you know, stop shouting at us from the outside and telling us what to do. Come and work for us and set up a fan support team and all of that. And I kept saying no because it was quite nice to just shout from the outside, tell people what to do, rather than have to do it yourself. But I basically did an awful lot of different roles really at the league, because starting from a time when there was only 22 people working there when I started.
Oh, wow.
2001. Yeah, so it was a small team of people. People always thought we were a lot bigger. So it was everything from, like, you know, fan liaison, recruiting supporter liaison officers, you know, to work at all of the clubs, you know, sort of setting up that network, working on it on all sorts of diversity initiatives to help to increase the diversity of the fan base, you know, safety, all sorts of different issues really. And really working on like best practice with the clubs. My job entailed really being out at the clubs more than being in the office, which was good. That was what I enjoyed really. You know, and helping them and showing them what good looked like, I suppose. Because a lot of the time clubs would say, look, we know we need to improve, like we know we need to change what we're doing, but just tell us how, you know. We're busy people, you know, you tell us what fans want. And we usually say, well, you know, how about listening to your fans? Because every fan base is different, you know.
Yeah.
What's the biggest improvement you saw over the period you worked with those clubs?
I think generally, you know, stadiums improved a lot. They improved, they changed, not always for the better, I have to say. I'm not a big fan of some of the, you know, particularly the mid-90s, sort of early 2000 stadiums, the bowls that were built outside of town that always feel quite soulless. But I think generally, it's a good question that. I mean, I think overall there was a real change in understanding that actually the experience of the fans mattered. Nice. And I think that was probably the biggest change that happened. I think certainly it is so much safer than it ever was. And I think that was my main aim, I suppose, when I was there. It was just safety has to be really at the fore and has to be really important, you know. I could never get too exercised about, you know, the price of the burgers or, you know, the pies or whatever.
The beer.
Oh, the beer, even. I don't think the beer has improved much over the years. I think the beer has improved more lately. You can get better beer. You can get craft beer, and that was actually something that we really pushed for. So I think, and also actually the diversity of the crowd changing was something that I was really, really proud of and really liked, you know, because it really did change from being very white and very male at most clubs, certainly at Liverpool, you know. And I think the fact that football is something that just about anyone now feels comfortable going to was something that I really wanted. And I just think the balance, the trick is to be able to do that without taking the edge away from it. Yeah. You know, you don't want to sanitize it, like, so that it just becomes some, you know, sanitized environment that everyone just feels safe at, but doesn't actually enjoy. You know, what people go for is that I always used to say this, what people go to football for is the fact that there is a bit of an edge, You're trying to improve it, in inverted commas, too much, or sanitize it too much, or take that away from it, or, stop people standing up when a goal is scored. I had a constant battle actually with safety authorities about allowing people to just stand up during the game in the seats, because in a lot of environments it's perfectly safe to do so.
Yeah.
Reminds me as a kid, you go to the cricket and there's a stigma against the members because they'd be all proper and polite, and a golf clap was as much enthusiasm as they'd get, and the rest of the crowd would tell the members exactly what they thought of them.
Yeah, exactly. And I'd hate football to be like that. I think there's always been that danger, hasn't it? And over the years, it's something that we've all resisted, is, improving the experience too much. Like I did quite a lot of work on improving the experience for away fans. And some of my friends would be like, we don't want it improved. Stop,
Yeah.
I'd have to try and say, well, I'm not trying to make it all too clean and safe and boring, but just, you would like to be able to get a beer more quickly, or, like you'd like the toilets to be, I always say it's not something people campaign about, but nobody wants the toilets to be horrible,
Yeah.
We'd all like all of that to be better than it is, So a lot of it actually was sort of, we used to say our job was to make nothing happen, but that if people aren't complaining, then you've improved things,
So somehow my mind is drawn to the Kenny Dalglish stand, and that feels it's in need of a bit of an upgrade, I think.
I think we're lucky on the Kop to have the Kop actually, because you wouldn't be allowed to build a stand like that now. And if we had built a new stadium, you wouldn't be allowed to build seats that close. I've been at, obviously, I used to go to matches at grounds all up and down the country, in the home ends as well as the away. And it did feel quite weird. And I remember being at Man City and realizing that everyone sort of celebrates a goal individually.
Yeah.
And just thinking that to me is really strange. Yeah. And it's partly to do, and it can be to do with the people that are there, but also it's just like the proximity of the seats and stuff. If you're at the wrong height, you can't celebrate with the person in front of you. Because it would just be weird. But actually, the fact that we're on a different sort of rake in the Kop, and we're actually all really packed tightly together, means that a goal is scored and there's a few rows celebrating together. That's quite unusual, really, at the top level.
I'm surprised Charlie didn't jump in with a joke about the sparseness of the crowd at City, but that's a...
Well, exactly. Yeah, they were definitely social distancing. They were pioneers of social distancing.
They were preparing for, no crowds in the stadium for years and years, and it finally paid off.
Yeah.
It seems like Arsenal's probably a good example of that. And, they went from this, classic amazing ground to like Emirates just feels like an empty place. I mean, I've never been there, but just seeing it on TV, it doesn't seem like the same at all,
Yeah, and it's great for a neutral, but then no football ground should be great for a neutral.
Right. Yeah.
And I think City is like that. That if you and that was the problem actually at Arsenal. A lot of people who go to Arsenal are people who live in London who wanted to have a season ticket in London.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wouldn't be Arsenal fans. So when everyone's saying, why are they going home early? They're not even Arsenal fans. They've come out for a night out with the kids.
Yeah.
More money than sense, and so they wouldn't always turn up for Champions League games because it would be a school night, So it's dangerous when you do that and you set it to be this place where people think, well, I just want to go to Arsenal. Then also they'll move on and get a season ticket at Tottenham when things change. Yeah.
Better craft beer, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So we're gonna close this first segment for this week, and just kind of one question on. So what's the most exciting thing you have planned to work on going forward?
What's the most exciting? I think the fact that I'm working on a digital platform for the remote briefing actually of stewards and matchday staff. It doesn't sound that exciting, but I really want to revolutionize the way all of that is sort of done behind the scenes. So actually, for me, that's quite a lot of fun actually to be able to develop something like that and change the way that the matchday staff are treated as well. Because I just think it's just really important that stewards and all of those people are treated with respect they deserve, because they're part of us really. They're part of our experience as fans,
And is that across the league or is that for one group team in particular?
Hopefully across the league, yeah. I mean, it depends who we sell it into, but yeah, the idea is that it'll be used across the leagues and across different sports as well. So it could be quite an exciting development.
That's awesome.
Coming to a sports ground near you, she says, hopefully.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we're going to close this segment now. Thanks, Cathy, for joining us. It's been hugely entertaining. Charlie didn't even get to mention Madrid.